Hey everybody, my name is Tuffy Maggio and I'm here with my co-host Jason Santana, and this is the Fourth Wall Effect brought to you by Metaversity, your number one source for Metazoo competitive and collectible news. So, Jason, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Excited to be here. Excited for another week of our podcast. Lots of things to dive into because we've uncovered a whole. I don't want to spoil it, but we've covered up some analytics that we're going to dive into later, which is going to be amazing. And even more so, what's amazing is your performance at Kansas City Collecticon. Congratulations, taking home a third place.
Thank you. It was a fun time. It was a really fun time. I enjoyed it.
But I actually feel bad for you. And it's not because it's third place. Because you didn't get a chance to listen to Vanilla Ice.
Oh man. I've been to every Collecticon but one. And I've heard Vanilla Ice at every single one of them, except for this one, because they had the tournament hall way far away from where the convention was. So it was kind of nice not having the noise. But yes, I did miss Vanilla Ice.
Tell us about Collecticon, your experience, the occasion itself. How did it go? Because, I was watching from behind the scenes at, the computer, and then my phone, and then on the go, and then back on my phone, then back on the computer. And it just seemed like a really nice production that was going on behind the scenes, at least. What was it like playing there? Did things go off without a hitch? Were there any issues or anything notable to talk about? Like, tell me.
The tournament itself went fantastic. Since I had a collectible NFT, I was able to get into the convention pretty fast through the VIP line, and I just walked in, got my wristband, walked around for a little bit, trying to find the tournament hall, and found it. And right next to it was a Digimon tournament, and I think there was also Dragon Ball as well. But the Digimon tournament had a room full of people. And I was like, oh man, I didn't know that it wasn't the Metazoo tournament. So I was like, okay, a lot of people showed up for this thing. And come to find out it was Digimon. And I was like, oh, okay. So I walk into the Metazoo room and I'm like, oh, hey, Fajir, here. There's a few other people in there, but I was like, okay, this is going to be smaller than the Digimon thing. But walked in, they checked my deck, checked my fourth wall items, everything.
But in comparison, as far as like Digimon has been around for like 20 years.
It has. I remember back when I was a kid watching Digimon on TV and playing with the cards that they had back then. I think there's been 3 different Digimon card games now.
So and that was back when the only thing to watch was TV. So you had like your Saturday morning cartoons, and that was pretty much it. You were catching up maybe Friday. I don't know if they were even showing cartoons on Fridays. I remember TGIF, but on Saturday was cartoons, and that's all you saw. Like I mean, for me, I didn't even have basic cable. I had 5 channels, 6 channels that I could count on, and so that stuff was shoved down our throats. I mean, I'm sure many more people. I actually want to see how it'd be like, if I can go in the future, how Metazoo would be like in 20 years from now, because it's not shoved down our throats, and what kind of performance can be outshined. Just to kind of throw it out there. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the future of Metazoo. I mean, like it's a whole different ball game nowadays. Like Saturday morning cartoons, we were living the dream. I mean, I feel bad for the kids nowadays because they don't know how good it was back then. Like we had Power Rangers, Digimon, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z. It was amazing. It was a great time to be alive. But yeah, Metazoo
now it's just a bunch of Let's Plays on YouTube. You know, everybody's just watching Let's Plays on YouTube and Baby Shark and all this other, you know, a bunch of meme stuff nowadays. So it's way different.
Mm-hmm.
You could just tune into anything these days. So, but yeah, tell me, let's go talk about the Collecticon instead of Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, Saturday, I didn't even get to see the convention because I was playing the tournament the whole time, and the tournament lasted pretty much all day. Because it was 6 rounds, and then it was after the 6 rounds, that's when they announced who made top 8, and we got started, I think, around, what was it, 11, or maybe it was a little bit around noon, something like that. But as soon as we were done with the tournament, the convention was pretty much over. So, you know, everybody went and hung out at the Marriott Hotel that was across the way, and there was a really cool like a Hispanic fair going on. So there was music and food and all kinds of stuff. So
did you salsa? Did you find some ladies and do a little dance?
Well, no, my wife would kill me. But
oh, that's true. That's true. Sorry, Mrs. Maggio.
But no, it was a lot of fun. Like a lot of the Metazoo crew was hanging out there. Like J. Logan Dick, he was hanging out. Like we were all just, you know, hanging, having a good time. Some people drinking, eating, you know, and talking about the game. What was really cool is Andy. He ended up just kind of chilling out with us for a little bit, talking about, you know, how Seance is going to really change everything. And I mentioned, I'm like, you know, it really seems like there's a Magic player that may be behind the scenes, kind of, you know, doing a little bit of deving. And he's like, oh yeah, you know, there's Emilio. He's a big time Magic player. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when I look at the newer cards, I see a lot of like inspiration from Magic. And I was kind of curious about that. And then when Andy was like, oh yeah, you know, Emilio, and you know, yeah, sweet. So
yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of the spoilers. I think we've probably seen close to like, I don't know, 7 or 8 spoilers, and we're actually going to have something special for everybody, hopefully soon, where you know, we can show off a little something special. We're not going to get into details, but we're going to have some very unique content for everybody regarding those spoilers. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. So it's interesting because I didn't know that Andy was going to be at Collecticon. I thought he was going to be over at the Mothman Festival, because there was 2 events happening at the same time. There was the Mothman Festival, and I thought Mike and Andy were going there. And then surprised to hear about Andy. Did you get a chance to hang out with it? You got a chance to hang out with him, talk to him. So that's pretty cool. And you got a chance to talk to a lot of the guys there. Did you get a chance to hang out with any of the artists?
So no, not really any of the artists, but it was mostly like the Metazoo R&D. And I think Andy might be a part of that or something, because he was kind of talking like he was. But Fajir's always fun to hang out with. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of the crew there. Mike was not at the Mothman Festival, by the way. He
wasn't.
No,
How do you know?
Over with, because he streamed with Steve Aoki. They, I think they were auctioning off some. Yeah, they were on Whatnot. Mike was with Steve Aoki on Whatnot, and they were auctioning some items off, and one of the items was a graded. What was that? It was a graded vaccine card. So I'm not sure if it was. I think it might have been Steve's or Logan Paul's or something like that. But yeah, they auctioned off a graded PSA graded vaccine card, and it was like $5,000.
What was the grade?
I'm not sure what the grade was, but I know it went for $5,000. So
that's sick.
That was pretty crazy.
I mean, I still have my vaccine card. Hopefully one day it's worth $5,000.
Better get it graded now, right?
It's a piece of history, honestly.
It is. But yeah, no.
It's like back when everybody back when everybody was getting those polio vaccinations, they used to have like those big papers and stuff like that. Because I know my mom has one from when he was. Oh my god, it's a long time ago, showing my age.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So basically that's how Saturday went, was just hanging out with everybody. I actually traveled with Speed Lemon, Michael Flaherty, and Liam. I forgot Liam's last name, but everybody knows Liam. So
Pfeiffer?
That was Liam Pfeiffer. And he's
don't worry, Liam, I got you. If you're listening, I got you.
He's the Monkey King. He loves his Napa Rebobs. He actually kind of popularized that, and then also at the second extravaganza, the Caster Society extravaganza, he'd done really well with Cosmic. So he ended up taking down that tournament, and that was kind of the first time that Cosmic really boomed. So, but yeah, it was a really interesting trip with them, and I didn't get too much sleep.
Are they fun to hang out with? They're fun guys.
Oh, they're a blast. They are a blast.
It's funny too, because you travel with them, and in our very first podcast, we said the best thing to do to like keep your costs down was to travel with a bunch of buddies if you can. And sure enough, and I think you guys got like a really good deal on a hotel too, and sharing that cost. So, what would you think was your overall expenses, like traveling and hotel and everything else like that? Like 3 of you guys hanging out, rooming together. Do you think it was like under $200?
Yeah. So with the collectible NFT, that gives you free entry into Collecticons, and I think that's like what, $75. So
yeah, I think that's the going rate right now on.
Yeah. So minus the cost of the NFT, I would say less than $300 total, because we didn't go too crazy on like food or anything like that, but you split fuel 3 ways. They were driving 12 hours one way away from home, and they picked me up about halfway, so it was about 6 hours away from me. But you're talking 24 hours of driving total. Split a hotel 3 ways, and
it's not bad.
You kind of eat on the cheap. Yeah, it's not bad at all. So, and just imagine if you have like 5 or more people sharing an Airbnb, it can get even cheaper. Like we were looking at one Airbnb it was like $100 a night, but unfortunately that was already booked. But just imagine having 3 to 5 people sharing a 3-bedroom Airbnb. Like cost is way down. And Metazoo being awesome with no entry fee on their tournaments really helps things out a lot too. Usually for other games, bigger events cost around like 50 or more for an entry fee.
And it's not bad for you because you took 3rd place. You got a medal, and you got you're gonna show. For those that are just listening, he's showing the medal. This is a unicorn 3rd place medal, which gives you plus 20 plus 20 LP attack.
Yep. Plus 20, and it also, all effects affecting target beastie are removed. So if something is paralyzed, you get to remove that as well. But Metazoo really, really blew it out of the park with this one, because they gave us some more prizes than what they had listed. So
that's
3rd place. I know, right? That was awesome. 3rd place, usually you'd walk away with a box is what they had listed. But instead they gave us a artist signed box. So all the artists that were there, each one of the top 3 got a UFO booster box that was signed by all them. Plus I got a wilderness box, plus a regular UFO box. So that's 3 booster boxes. And then I think the biggest one of all, and it's a 1 of 1, and it is a artist sketch. So they gave each one of us a artist sketch card. I got the bronze, and this one was drawn by Poncho. And
very cool.
Arthur ended up getting the silver, and Easton got the gold. But all three of us have one of ones, so that was a really cool thing. And we got plushies.
That is very cool. Yep. And you got plushies.
We got that's plushies.
Good.
I mean,
and that's a good plushie. I like that plushie. That's a cute plushie.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the Dallas plushie, which the Dallas plushie is. It looks something special. Let's just say that way. Not a fan of that plushie, but.
Oh, you mean the Long Beach plushie? The Dallas plushie was. I think the Dallas one was solid. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, you're right. The Long Beach one. I'm mixing up the Long Beach one was. Yeah. Well, I'll trade for plushies. I have two of them. One I'd like to trade for. So hopefully I can get the laying down one eventually.
Well, there's a rumor that if you collect all the plushies at the end, you get something.
Okay.
So
that will be interesting then. I don't have the egg though. I still need the egg.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one. I think I mentioned before, Mike Waddell threw an egg at me.
Yeah, you did.
Plastic broke.
Yeah. So let's go into some tournament play. Why don't we? But I'm glad you had a good time. I'm glad you were able to take home third place. And we'll go over some of your deck. We'll go over the decks. We'll go over your thought processes. We'll do that. But actually, before we get into any actual decks, let's kind of go over and congratulate those that did win because we've got out of the 62 people that signed up, that registered, 36 people showed up. So it was a field of 36. And Easton Evans, the absolute number one at this point, like there's no denying at this point that he is absolutely the number one player statistically with his placings. Easton Evans, Primetime Indie on Instagram, Team Caster Society, winning with the Flame/Dark deck. And he took home the first place prizes, first place medal. He got that artist card that you mentioned, the sketch card. Everybody got a participation medal, but he took home 3 UFO boosters, 3 UFO spell books, a UFO theme deck, 5 UFO release event decks, and 4 UFO blisters. So probably close to another $300 in product, maybe $400 in product. Mm-hmm. So probably take home with the value of the card, the value of the participation medal, the value of the sketch, probably close to maybe close to $2,000, because I think first place card goes for what people ask, $1,000, $1,500 for this card.
Well, right now, the only sold listing on eBay for the new medals is the second place medal, and that was $750. So there hasn't really been any anything really listed for the new medals that I've seen. So
sounds like people want to keep them. They want to play with them.
Yeah. Yeah,
so it will be even harder to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arthur Tabernacki taking second place. Instagram, what's in the pack with the Fearsome Critters. And it's funny, we talked about Fearsome Critters last week. People are going to play them, and he showed up with them well, with second place, taking home the second place, an artist sketch card, participation medal. Instead of 3 UFO boosters like Easton, he got 2. So everything looked like it knocked down one set. 2 UFO spell books, 1 UFO theme deck, 5 UFO release event decks, and 4 UFO blisters. So kind of the same value, just the value of the difference of the cards there. So congrats to Arthur. And of course you, Tuffy, third place with Cosmic Control, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Third place artist, like you mentioned, 1 UFO spell book, theme deck, 5 release event decks, 4 UFO. And then for everybody after that placed top 8, 4 through 8th prizes, 1 participation medal. Again, everybody got a participation medal. They got a UFO booster box as well, a spell book, and 4 UFO blisters. And those 4 through 8, those notables are Kendall Adams from Southern Heat Collectibles on Instagram. That's his handle. With a Spirit deck, we got 5th place Michael Galarza. He had the Water deck. I think so. And then 6th, Damian Gonzalez. forgot that deck. But seventh place,
he was playing Cosmic, I believe.
Damien playing Cosmic. Okay, seventh place, James Studley with Water. So 2 Water players. Talk about that later as well. And we talked about that last week. Water coming up, and then 8th place, Luis Perez, Luca Zooey on Instagram with the Frost deck. So Lewis was actually first place at Long Beach, bringing back Frost for Kansas City and making the top 8 again. And interesting that you said last week, it's very, very rare to see the same type of deck list that won one tournament come back and win again. So, Frost, we'll talk about Frost, but what we really want to dive into is going to be Easton's, the number 1 deck, the Flame, the Dark Splash. Tell us about Tuffy. What was so different about this deck than what we saw from any other deck? Because there wasn't that much Flame to begin with, but this one was way different beasties, things that we were not used to maybe seeing. And it probably starts with UFO.
Yeah. So one of the biggest inclusions in the deck is Green Fireball. Green Fireball is really, really good in this deck because it's basically a 2-drop that it has a 30 attack that has burn 1. It's a spirit, and then whenever your opponent loses their final burn counter, they lose 25 life points. So your opponent can't attack it, and it's just incremental damage every single turn. As long as you can, put a burn counter on your opponent I believe it's at the end of every turn, a burn counter gets removed. So, as long as they just have the 1, it's 25 damage per green fireballs. So let's say there's 3 in play, your opponent's going to lose 25 for each at the end of your turn. So it's going to be 75 damage, and that incremental damage can add up over time.
So with that one, so the main goal there is you're just attacking the caster, or because they can't be attacked, so they're just this presence that's just hanging out on the field.
Mm-hmm.
They're just there for that damage to caster. They're not taking out any beasties, are they?
Most of the time not, but sometimes they will. The 30 attack is kind of small, but sometimes your opponent's going to be playing Fearsome Critters, and so if that's the case, just like in the finals between him and Arthur, that 30 attack gets a plus 20 attack boost when it's doing battle against a forest beastie. So it's attacking for 50 into a forest beastie. And a lot of the times that's going to be able to kill a Fearsome Critter. But most of the time you're just swinging your opponent with it, or just letting it sit on the board if your opponent does have a blocker for it, and, trying to get those burn counters on your opponent some other way. But it sticks around, and most of the time your opponent isn't going to have any answers for it unless they have First Anniversary Celebration, which removes the spirit trait and then allows you to attack into it. But that's generally the only thing that it really does. But the way to play around it is, if you're playing against it, you're going to leave up blockers, and because you can't attack it when it has a spirit trait, but you can block it. So you want to hold up blockers or use removal on the green fireballs. That's the ways to deal with it. And a lot of the decks in the top 8 didn't really have any ways to deal with it. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Easton was able to just go into the tournament, dominate, did not lose a match with that card in his deck.
Yeah, there's not from the top 8. They weren't very removal heavy decks. With 2 water, there's no real big spells there that are doing damage. Maybe there's lightning that can put up a fight if they've got, the bolts. if they got the splits, but that's a lot of resources for such a small beastie. In in comparison to what that aura cost is, and then Cosmic also doesn't really have those spells. Maybe the lock, maybe the gun, I guess, can help, but by the time you've got the gun out and that's in motion, I'm sure you could start to fall quickly behind.
Yeah, and one of the big things about it too is even though Cosmic has the gun in the deck, um, Easton was playing removal spells. So you're talking Unholy Fire is a 2 of. There's 2 explosions, 2 first anniversary celebrations, and then also 2 hateful demise. So his deck had a lot of removal and a lot of ways to answer like the beasties with the gun. So it was, it's pretty difficult. One of the other cards in the deck too that is really impressive, especially when it's out, and Easton's playing 2 of them, is Gassy Endietha, or Gassy Endietha. And Gassy basically allows you to replay spells from your cemetery, and as long as you have the aura, the same type of aura that those spells cost. So, let's say you want to replay an Unholy Fire. Well, you have to have a flame aura in play to be able to replay it from your cemetery, and you can only replay each card once per turn, but it allows you to recycle those removal spells. So while Easton is getting incremental damage with the green fireballs, using his removal spells to also destroy his opponent's beasties, he's playing Gassy to reuse those removal spells. So, decks that run very few beasties really gets punished because these removal spells, a lot of them are 1-for-1s. So what that means is you're, just spending your 1 removal spell on 1 beastie. But if you can replay it, that's a whole lot of value. So if you can get 2 beasties for 1 removal spell, that's insane advantage there. But
so it just basically sounds like, with these removal spells, taking care of your, his opponent's beasties, and then just leaving those green fireballs up, that you're just bound for a slow death, because what can you possibly, you're trying to pull up with a beastie or 2, trying to gain momentum. They're gone, and then here's green fireball again. And then here's green fireball again. Same thing, rinse and repeat. So he's going through, with 2 Gassies, 2 cycles of, at least, well, he would hope 2 cycles of being able to bring back those cards, those spells. So just, it's like resetting a game each time for him. And that's quite, it's quite the challenge to come over, especially when you've got, these evasives that you just can't handle.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of evasive beasties. And speaking of evasive beasties, there's also Headless Coal Miner in Easton's deck, and he plays 3 of the main deck. And Headless Coal Miner is also a spirit, or it's got the spirit trait, so it can't be attacked. It can be blocked, but it just can't be attacked. And it does get, so it's a 50 attack. It has burn 3, and then it gets an additional 25 boost if you have coal as a 4th wall item. So that's a 75 attack. It does have a low HP with only 50, and it costs 4 aura, but it's got a really strong attack, because when you contract it, it makes 2 dynamite artifact tokens. And when those are destroyed, your opponent takes 20 damage per artifact token. Basically, they say when they're destroyed, deal 20 damage to target caster. But when you attack with Headless Coal Miner, you can destroy all your tokens, all your dynamite tokens in the arena, and then it deals 10 damage to all opposing pages for each dynamite token destroyed. So not only do the dynamite tokens deal 20 damage to your opponent when they die, but this attack deals 10 damage to all your opponent's beasties, all their artifacts, anything that has life points that your opponent controls, each take 10 damage per dynamite token.
It's pretty intense. I mean, you're talking about, as an overall damage amount, could be 150, depending on how many beasties you have, plus the damage to caster. I mean, that's quite heavy. And to have 3 of them, I mean, you're probably more than likely, I mean, 3 in a 40 some odd card deck. I mean, 8% chance of having one in your hand by the time you're drawing cards. By the mid game, you're 100% certain that you're going to be facing this card. And by the time you've wasted all your resources on Fireball and bringing your beasties out, trying to get your beasties back, if that's what you're trying to do, then here comes Headless Coal Miner. It's quite a heavy deck to go after. And then, like you said before, he's featuring Unholy Fires, and those, there's even more damage. And I mean, for you, what it seemed like is, as far as the Cosmic deck, those Unholy Fires were the Cosmic killer. Just killing momentum.
Yeah, the Unholy Fires, like, so if you play, so Flatwoods, part of the Cosmic combo pieces is the Flatwoods monster, and it only has 50 HP. So if I play Flatwoods and name Beastie, because let's say he has a couple of green fireballs, out, and I'm trying to slow him down by playing Beastie, or by saying Beastie, when I play that, he could just play Unholy Fire, destroy my Flatwoods, and there goes one of my combo pieces. And then it's kind of a struggle after that, because once the Flatwoods is gone, you have to focus on Reptoid Ruler being your win condition, just filling up the board and then playing Reptoid Ruler, pumping all your aliens. But with so many ways of killing beasties in his deck, that's almost impossible. So like game 1, when I was playing against him in a feature match, he got rid of my Flatwoods, and I was just into kind of like top deck mode, because he kept on killing my lizard people. So I couldn't gain ground. I couldn't build up my board to get that final big win in there, or big swing. So he also plays Growth, which draw 5 cards, which is, amazing in a deck like this. And I mean, there's just a lot going on in the deck.
Very interesting on a spell heavy deck. I think it's would this be the first time we're seeing a spell heavy deck or a flame deck elevating to this level of competitive play?
I think it's not the first time that that a spell heavy deck has done well, but a flame deck for sure. I know that Flame did kind of well in Long Beach, but I know that Easton's been playing kind of a version of this deck for the last couple weeks, and I think he's finally got it to a point to where it's, kind of almost perfected in a way, and it's really good in this metagame.
Right, I was actually just about to ask you, is it because of the meta, or is it because we're thinking that overall this could be a really strong deck for the next few months? I mean, we always talk about it after seeing Cosmic coming out and saying, well, this loop is cracked. It's cracked the code. But then here we are looking at a spell deck that's cracked the code on the code. Is that the new, is it the bee's knees?
Well, I think this deck was more geared towards beating the Cosmic deck. I don't think it's the S tier, like broken deck of the format. I think this was just a really good metagame choice, and the metagame is going to change a little bit. And I think that this is the perfect time to play Water. Water seems like it's probably got a pretty good matchup against this, because like Unholy Flame only deals 50 damage, right? So Mailman, being in the Water deck, has 60 HP. It's a really good blocker as well. So because of Mailman, because of Wallow a Lake Crustacean, having stone skin, so it can't be, you can't play your burn removal spells on it. I think water has a lot of good quality beasties, and it's kind of about your threat density a little bit. So when your opponent's playing a bunch of removal, and your water, which is more of a value kind of grind you out kind of deck, I don't think the flame deck really has enough answers for the water cards. Now, if they land gassy and replay a bunch of stuff, that's kind of, a way for the flame deck to get back in there against water. But I think a really good water pilot would be able to give this deck a challenge. And so, I think
is that the only deck? Is that the only deck that can really beat this flame version, you think? Or does lightning have a fighting chance on beating this flame? Does even Spirit, which we saw upcoming, have a chance to beat this flame? Where can we stand? Where can the community stand on beating this meta beater?
I think Spirit would kind of have a hard time. Like Kendall's Spirit list, he plays Morpheus for his removal spells, but that's kind of it. So when you land a green fireball, when you land other spirit type beasties like in the flame deck, and your opponent isn't really dealing with them because they're spirits, then I think the flame deck would have a really good matchup against that. Lightning, on the other hand, I think Lightning has a lot of potential to be really good against that flame deck because Lightning has access to a few more removal spells. Also, like Dingbell can be pretty good against them. I know that it does play the Headless Coal Miner, but you get a big enough Dingbell that they can't burn away. They would have to attack into it or burn it and then attack into it or something like that to deal with it. I think Dingbell could be a really good choice, but Quetz is a big problem. And one of the only ways to deal with it in that flame deck is the let me take a look 1 second. Hateful Demise. Hateful Demise is one of the only ways to deal with Quetz in that deck. So I think Lightning can have a better matchup against it. It just, Lightning has to make it through a field of other decks that are kind of hating it out right now. And that's kind of what happened in the tournament.
So we kind of have to see Cosmic fizzle out before Lightning could really make that push again, because we did discuss a little bit about the field, about the amount of the variants and the decks that were played, and we'll talk about that later. But right now we need to see a shift in the percentage of gameplay from different decks, as you noted, for Lightning to really make that secondary push. Now, what's interesting though is that we think about spells, but on the totally opposite end of the spectrum was the beastie heavy fearsome critter deck from Arthur, where he just kind of kept coming up. He just kept beating other people, and those critters with the tribal boost and with the addition in UFO of Forest Elemental definitely helped him navigate a little bit through the lightning. But there were some other cards in there as well that helped, that we had discussed about, prior to, even having this podcast, discussed about, helping critters. Can you kind of walk us through what Arthur did with his deck and kind of maybe some advantages or disadvantages he might have had? And was this where critters is just really good now, or was there a little bit of luck involved?
Well, the one thing that Arthur did, I know, is he 2-1'd everybody that he won against. So there was no 2-0s. It was always a 2-1, generally because fearsome critters are going to win most of the time in game one, and then they go second in game two. So when they go second, it's kind of a little bit harder of a battle. Plus, your opponent is prepared for the critters by bringing in Bubbling Brew and those kind of cards. And then game 3, when Fearsome Critters goes first, it can snowball like crazy. So you have Roperite, you have Lightning in a Bottle. You know, a lot of the time you're going to go turn 1 Roperite, play Lightning in a Bottle, awaken it, play more cards. But
especially in my experience, sometimes in game 3 when you're going to time, you know, you're at 5-minute time because maybe you had some long, and you're like, well, you know, I can eke out, you know, game 2 isn't working out, let's scoop, and you scoop a little late, you go to time and turns, and because Fearsome could get them all out first and have the advantage in damage, that could be a big difference, actually.
Yeah, whoever is playing the Fearsome Critters deck when it goes to time is usually going to win based on life points. So I'm not sure how many matches Arthur's went to time on, but I could almost guarantee you that every match that he went to time on, he probably won. But
well, he went. Yeah, I mean, he only lost 1 match during play, and it was to Flame, which was Easton's. So with the type advantage, understandable. But him going undefeated through kind of shows that, you know, 2-1 on everybody, 4 wins. It's definitely, you can't not go to time with that critter deck, at least twice. At least my experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, like this game is inherently kind of a slower game. So it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting. How many times did Arthur go first versus going last? And we could probably make a good bet that he did go first a lot of the times. Well, maybe he had a good lucky rolls. Who knows? You know, but he did have some good cards in his deck that should be noted for Fearsome Critters. We talked about, you know, we can talk about T-Rex being a part of his deck, which is good against a lot of cards in general.
All right, so Arthur plays 2 mini T-Rex in his side deck, and those are really good against beasties that are weak to forest. It basically, mini T-Rex says when you play it, you get to deal 30 damage to a beastie with a base attack that is 20 or less. So you're able to deal 30 damage to beasties like Familiar. You can hit a Loveland Frogman for a total of 50 damage because water is weak to forest. So there's a lot of uses for the mini T-Rex that really, like, it's great to have it as an option in the side deck. But it's got a solid little attack, you know, 10 damage. If you're wearing a cowboy hat, it deals plus 10 damage, but it's mainly there for the 30 damage contract ability.
Yeah, it does also have tribal boost if you have both dinosaurs out there. And I guess the entire deck having tribal boost. And what's great there is with these added boosts, he threw in on the side, and I've played Arthur before in the past, he threw in Arkansas Snipe in the side. And that's great because, you know, you have these effects that happen, like, let's say, for example, you know, Morpheus, somebody sleeping the Gumbaroo, or you know, even on burning a Roperite or burning an Axe Handlehound that are still on the field, that snipe can do some damage because of its power effect.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you can also use the power to kind of, if you're playing against water, you can use the power to play around Flood the Earth, since Flood the Earth destroys anything with without flying. You can use your snipe to eat up one of your bigger fearsome critters, and then if they do go to play Flood the Earth, you know, it doesn't kill snipes, so they have to deal with a big beastie then. So you can use it on your own or your opponents. And in the mirror match, they're amazing. Just being able to fatigue your snipe, kill one of their fearsome critters is huge. It's a huge.
Yeah, I was unfortunate in a matchup with Arthur when he had side decked those snipes, and I did not have any snipes, so that was a GG for him against me. So good job for Arthur. Glad to see critters up there. I mean, I play critters. Everybody who does play critters is excited to see that they're making top 3 and making a push. And it could be just the fact that they had they're having a good role in this meta. I mean, we talked about it last week. We said, there's things to look out for were going to be critters. Things to look out for was definitely going to be the cosmic. Things to look out for were going to be the water. And there was a lot of answers that Lightning needed to do in order to make it through in this transitionary meta period. But they don't make the top 3. No Lightning in the top 3 here, and you take it down with you take the 3rd place, lock it in with the cosmic lock. So yep. Let's dive into your deck, because you had a point that you wanted to make. You had something to prove.
Right. So basically, the cosmic deck that I played is essentially Herman Herrera's list from the Caster Society UFO Clash event. I just added 2 Aura Absorb to the side deck. But the one thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to prove a point, because there's a lot of people that like to hide information in Metazoo. That's kind of something new to me, because throughout the years, playing Magic for 20 plus years, also other card games, deck lists have always been available from events that happen, and it really helps a game grow. And I feel that Metazoo has been kind of lacking that, because there's been quite a few events, bigger events that have happened that, the deck lists just don't come out for, or there's, just a few from each event. But what I did was I posted my deck list the night before the tournament on Instagram, basically saying, hey, everybody, this is the exact list that I'm playing, and feel free to check it out. Feel free to play it. Feel free to be prepared when you play against me. But, it's one of those things, I wasn't afraid to put it out there, because I feel like, it's kind of pointless being secretive, especially, for an event that isn't like a Caster Cup or, some kind of big money event. I just wanted to have fun with it. And these
are still metal events. It's still it's still somewhat important to those that are in that area, but really ballsy of you to put your deck out there. Like, seriously, really ballsy, because you're going in, if I'm posting my deck, I'm going in with the assumption that everybody knows exactly what I'm playing, and they have an answer. They're already thinking about the answer as soon as we draw that first 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like Metazoo is a game of information, but to me also, when I put my deck list out there, some people ain't really going to know how to play that deck. That's one of the reasons why I'm okay with putting an exact deck list out there the night before a tournament, because somebody can pick that deck up, but they don't have the time that was put into that deck. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't really test all that much with the Cosmic deck. I literally just put it together and went to the tournament with it. But I have enough experience with a lot of the same cards and everything, and having an idea of how to play the deck, that I was able to do it, fairly well enough to get 3rd place. But that
says a lot. That says a lot, because you're going against some of the top players in this, that are traveling to these Collecticons, and you're playing consistently high level players going into these featured table matches, and you're playing guys that know their stuff, and you're competing. They know exactly what you have, and it's kudos to you. I mean, proving the point makes it special enough that people that are listening, that are watching, or people that are not watching or listening yet, to put the information out there, because it's something that, because the game is so young, there's nothing solved, right? You can't, there's not enough hand histories, there's not enough game history to solve this. We can't really dive into the data that well, and we should all be helping each other to figure out how to play this game better, and what's better, what's worse, because anything can happen. I mean, we saw and to move into that comment is we saw what happened with Lightning, where they did actually not even making top 3, they didn't even make top 8, and it's not even close. Not even close at this point. And anything could change at a moment's notice, because Lightning doesn't have the hand histories to know whether or not it's going to be good or not in the long run for against Cosmic. There's not enough of that data. And if we can continue to share that data, if we can continue to get it out there, it's great. But I think the only thing that we can really understand from playing each other is the advantages and the disadvantages of these aura types. When you're taking in the Cosmic, what does that look like when you're playing flame decks, these spell heavy flame decks, or even when you're playing frost decks? You had a situation where you're at a feature table and you're playing Long Beach winner Lewis, and you had some challenges. You didn't get a chance to test as much, but a lot of people don't get a lot of chance to test as much because there isn't that much activity. We need more activity, but you had some challenges. Can you talk about some of the challenges when we think about playing against these different archetypes, and I guess especially in your case, the Frost versus Cosmic?
Yeah. So one of the big things is I didn't get a test as much because I just didn't have the time. And so I was going in kind of unprepared against, the ice deck. I know most of the cards, some of them I didn't know. So, while on camera, I'm like, all right, let me see what this card does. What? But, yeah, they have, so Frost has really good beasties with a low cost. You have Pamela, Amikuk, cards like that just don't cost very much to play aura wise. So they're really efficient. And so what I have to do is I have to try to get my Flatwoods combo going ASAP. But then the problem with that is that they also have really good spells like Alaskan Vortex. Alaskan Vortex is one of the best removal spells in the game because it does not target. So you can use Alaskan Vortex to kill a Loveland Frogman. It costs 4, and basically that's what it does. You pick a beastie, destroy it, and then you can take a spell from your cemetery that costs, or I think it's up to 2 spells with a total cost of 3 or less, and put them into your hand. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to play Vortex and buy back an Icy Path. And, that's
buy back an Icy Path, you said?
Yeah, you're gonna buy back your Icy Path from your cemetery with your Alaskan Vortex.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the strategy there.
Mm-hmm, yep. But Icy Path is really good because it allows you to redirect attacks. Like against Cosmic, you're able to Icy Path an attack from a Fresno Nightcrawlers, and so that's 50 damage. They can redirect to one of your other beasties if they want to, or even back to your face. But it really gives you a hard time when you do combo off and name beastie. But then they have those quality spells that eventually they're able to just use, possibly get rid of your combo piece or one of your combo pieces, and then they can start developing back into the game.
Do you think overall Frost has overall in a long game, if there was more games played through, that Frost would beat Cosmic out more oftentimes than not? Like a greater win percentage?
I think game one is in favor of the Frost deck, unless the Frost deck is playing guns. And then I think it's more of like a 50-50 because you're able to use the guns to destroy their Omnicucks, to destroy their beasties that do have evasion, the spirit trades, flying trade, that kind of thing. So you want to basically the goal is to put the gun upgrades on your beasties that have evasive traits like spirit, and then just pick off theirs continuously. It's kind of the same strategy that Cosmic has against lightning sometimes too. But I think after the side deck, it gets a lot harder because Cosmic is one of the known decks.
Gets a lot harder for Frost. Gets a lot harder for Frost.
It gets a lot harder for Frost, but also it gets a lot harder for Cosmic too, because Frost does bring in more removal spells. And just like Louis' Frost deck, he was actually playing Unholy Fire's main deck. So, he kind of has he kind of has a little bit better of a matchup against the Cosmic deck because of that. So he was kind of building his deck for that matchup. And then he was also expecting to play against more lightning. So, with a good matchup against the top two known decks going into the tournament, hey, it's a good deck to play.
Now, as far as like the Cosmic goes, you played Easton, and do you think that's even like Cosmic could even compete with the Easton Flame Dark deck? Like, that's just a GG?
It's a hard matchup. I don't think it's like just a GG. I think the matchup percentage is definitely in favor of Easton's deck because I feel that it was built to beat Cosmic. Just by all the card choices that's in it. Because he does get around the Flatwoods lock a little bit by, if your opponent doesn't. If I play Flatwoods and don't lock them out early out of Aura, like a turn 2 Flatwoods is, the nuts against almost anything. You just name Aura and lock them out. But if it's not turn 2, then if you lock him out of beasties, he's got spells. If you lock him out of spells, he has beasties.
And looking at more of the top 8, we saw that there was a Cosmic deck as well, another Cosmic, similar to yours, but it did have something a little different that maybe put them in a better position to win more games.
Yeah, so basically it was the same exact deck list, except he added a 41st card, and that was Necromancy. And Necromancy basically allows you to put the Flatwoods back into your deck if it does die, which is great, just in case, you play against a deck that does have a removal spell or is able to get rid of that Flatwoods. You can also buy back your entity, the Reptoid Ruler, if it dies. So Necromancy is a really good inclusion.
Do you think that your matches would have been a little bit better having that card in your deck? Or is it a mandatory, do you feel like?
I think maybe I would add it to my deck. I wouldn't make it a 41st card. I'd cut one of the other cards in the deck for it. Maybe one of the lizard people, or maybe one of the guns. Like, there wasn't many matches that I played that I had more than one gun in play. So maybe cutting a gun to put in the Necromancy might be a smart idea.
And overall, what's interesting out of the entire top 8 is probably Kendall Adams' Spirit deck. Because we have never seen Spirit in any conversation. We didn't talk about it. There was no inkling of it being, coming up into the meta. Just Kendall coming in, loving the Spirit because it's his favorite archetype. But he took 4th place and he had a decent showing to get to there.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really proud of Kendall because he has been playing this game for a while, and it's actually his first trading card game. And he went into this tournament with a lot of experience behind Spirit because that's pretty much what he plays in everything. And so he was really determined to play Spirit in this one. He came in and he, laid the smackdown on quite a few players, including the Long Beach champ, Louis. He actually beat him in the first round of the top 8. So I was really impressed with Kendall's showing in this.
And what's interesting about that is that Louis was first overall in the ranking going into the top 8, facing the 8th place, which was Kendall, and it was just not a good matchup. Now, I think based on everything that Spirit has, it's not a good matchup for Frost anyway. That's mainly due to a few cards. One card being Morpheus, the big one.
Yeah, Morpheus shuts down all of Frost beasties, and Frost doesn't really have any way of, removing that sleep counter. So when Morpheus puts something to sleep against Frost, it's staying asleep. It's not coming back.
And there's some ways that Kendall got creative with making sure that he could have even more Morpheuses, or Morphei, would you call it, when he needed them.
Yeah, he was able to board in or side deck in Gasientia, which allows you to just replay your Morpheuses. He also has Bell Witch in the main deck, which is another way of being able to replay your spells from your cemetery. And so he's able to use that to replay Morpheuses as well. So that shuts down a lot of beasties. And, like lightning, the only way to wake up anything would be lightning bolt or Witch's lightning. So Morpheus is really, really well positioned in this metagame right now.
And he got creative with some draw cards. He ended up adding in a growth, which goes to show what Prism Aura has the potential to do in this game. And also he included the Germinate, and he put 3 of them in there, which is a smaller draw, but nonetheless a draw.
Yeah, the Germinate actually works really well with some of the beasties too, because Germinate allows you to draw 1, and then any beastie with a Forest Terra bonus costs 1 less. So a lot of his beasties have that Forest Terra bonus. So you play Germinate, draw 1. It's essentially a free draw if you're able to play, let's say, a 2-drop, for 1. So the 1 aura you paid for the Germinate is kind of, it goes into that other beastie.
And those beasties that you're talking about having those forest bonuses are going to be like Ghost Deer, White Stag, all the little, I would call them spirit fearsome critter.
Yeah.
So to speak. And then of course we're seeing for the first time making its way through since its development in the fan art is Bloody Mary.
Yeah, Bloody Mary has been one of those cards that when you first look at it, you're like, this card is good. But everybody believed that Spirit was just not there yet. And, it's really surprising seeing Spirit in the top 8 of this before Seance. So if Spirit is that good right now, just imagine what Seance is going to bring. But Bloody Mary, basically what Bloody Mary does is that it has the scare trait, and then you can also use its power to bounce it back to your hand every turn. So you play it you can play it anytime as well. So you play it on your opponent's turn, bounce one of their attackers, and then on your turn, you use the power, bounce it back to your hand, and you could just continuously do that. Now, you do have to win a coin flip for that scare trait to, bounce one of your opponent's beasties. But if you do, it's so much value there.
Yeah, I mean, just even stopping the development of what's going on in your opponent's gameplay, it slows down the tempo of, what your opponent is thinking, what it's doing. And just to, just pause that for a moment really catches your opponent off guard. And then there's a new set of thinking that has to happen, because that just, it's like, what would be the closest you think? I mean, for me, It's kind of like when my opponent, if I'm thinking about poker, if my opponent just keeps staring at me and they keep staring at me and they keep staring at me, and meanwhile I had a move predetermined that I wanted to make, but those actions, what they do, and how those things transpire, change the way I think now. And so even just that having that, I think, is a little bit of a tempo play when you're just dropping that that Bloody Mary into the field, and they're like, what? What are you doing? That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's having that, like, facing down the spirit deck, which I played against Kendall in the top 4. I was just like, okay, when's the Bloody Mary coming down? Kind of like I have to plan out my attacks based on, okay, if he plays Bloody Mary, is this a solid attack? Should I hold back? Should I protect what I have on board? There's a lot of decision making there that really comes down to a lot of the situations. But knowing that your opponent has 2 in their deck, which, if you're playing Bloody Mary, you're going to have 2. And I knew he was playing Spirit, and I'm like, all right, Kendall knows what he's doing with Spirit. So, it really, I was kind of nervous in some instances because I was like, all right, I want to win this. This was, one of my things. Like, I've never won a medal in any of the Collecticon tournaments that I played in, but I've top 8'd every one of them except for the Caster Cup. But I knew that I would have to play very tight against Kendall because he knew exactly what he was doing. So there were some cards that I didn't know about that was in his deck too. And so it was,
it kind of goes to show you like how you have somebody that's experienced in a specific deck that have been playing it for a long time. And we can see that with Arthur playing the critters. He's been playing critters for a very long time. He knows that deck in and out. He has a very large sample size playing that type of deck. We talk about now Kendall, very large amount of experience playing through that deck, and even Louis playing through that Frost, where he has experience coming to Long Beach, bringing it all the way to Kansas City now. That time period where he's just crafting. They're getting more experience playing these decks. They're becoming the masters of that deck type. And we're talking now 3 out of the 8 that are there, and very few people are there to just kind of pick up a deck and roll with it. There are some occasions, some players that can get away with it. We have Easton, for example, picking up a brand new flame deck, although that might have been in works for a while. You're saying you just picked up Cosmic out of nowhere, and I believe that 100% because usually we play each other and you didn't play me at all with the Cosmic deck. And you're mainly a water player. It goes to show, like, if I think for some of maybe the newer people that are there, stick with one thing and make it the best thing that you like. It's okay if you're not playing that meta deck right now. If that's what you enjoy playing, eventually you could become so good at it that it doesn't even matter if it's part of the meta. Frost wasn't part of the meta until somebody who really worked on it piloted through and continued to make it a top 8 twice. And critters, I mean, maybe we haven't seen. Have you seen critters make top 8 like with such explosion like this one? I don't think so.
No, I think Speed Lemon made top 8 recently of one of the last 2 bigger events that happened down in Texas. And he's the king of the critters. Like, he has a Gumberoo tattooed on his arm. But,
right.
But yeah, I mean, it all goes to show that the best deck to play is the deck that you know the best. It doesn't matter if, Cosmic is going crazy and winning everything, and you haven't played it before. So it's like, is that really the best deck for me? Me going into the tournament, I didn't test the deck. I had experience with the cards and everything, but if I would have had a chance to test more, prepared a little bit more, maybe I could have took a W. But it really goes to show, like you said, Kendall knowing Spirit, Louis knowing Frost, Arthur knowing Fearsome Critters. It really, that was the best decks for them. Now, me personally, I'm more of a, I like to be a little bit more well-rounded and play a little bit of everything. But, there's advantages and disadvantages to that too, because if there's if there's a best deck that just pops up, I'm able to kind of pick it up and play it. But, I may not play as efficiently as somebody that has mastered, for some critters or, a deck like that. So, there's
really
there's two
cool
different
to see
styles.
like now you're seeing the evolution not only of the cards but of the players themselves coming into light. But going back into the cards, and I want to roll back to something that we talked about last week, which is going to be water. It's going to be where water makes that comeback, and right now water made the comeback as predicted. 2 out of the top 8 decks were water. They didn't top 3, but that's fine because there was a lot of challenges that were going through. They still had to go through a very large field of lightnings, to battle through. But those that were playing water that made the top 8 were playing true water. We talk about water control, not TR water. Water control, the old school frog control deck, and those were through Michael Galarza and James Studley. And I mean, we called it. I'm glad we were able to call it with such prediction.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we kind of want water to get there, but we kind of see that there were maybe potential misplays in the deck. There were some things added that were there before that that should have been included. We talked about Manaya last week. Glad to see it there, but now we're seeing other cards that we've seen before in the past be there and not be there.
Yeah, Manaya is huge. It's a broken effect. For 1 water, you get to bounce any beastie back to the owner's hand, and you can do it at any time. You do have to take your Manaya and put it into your afterlife, but it's just a super strong effect. The one thing that I am disappointed in not seeing is Index, and I kind of gave Studley a little bit of crap about it anyways, but he was playing Manaya, and I think that was the only Manaya in any deck in the room. But he was playing Manaya but no Index. But his reasoning on it was that he wanted to keep it to 40 cards. But in my opinion, when you're playing Index, when you're playing, which is essentially targeted card draw, but most of the other decks most of the other cards in your deck draw cards anyways. So you can play above 40. I mean, we see Philip Henderson. He plays 47 cards in his deck, which is crazy to me, even though I do like playing a little bit over 40 in water. But I mean, it just goes to show, like people have different play styles with how they build their decks. Like Studley, he really believes in that 40 card consistency, and I do too. But I don't mind going a little bit over in water. Now, if it's something like lightning or even cosmic, I like to stick with that lower number because you just need consistency. But water has that pretty much no matter what.
What was interesting to see from Michael's deck is making an appearance that we hadn't seen since the big rumors that were like a lot of people hiding the information at the time was Beast of Busco. And he had 2 in his deck. What do you think was his reasoning for having Beast of Busco? I know we talked about maybe Lightning needed to put more Hornets in his deck. Do you think that, Michael was prepared for something that we didn't see or really didn't talk about? Because we haven't talked about Busco.
Yeah. So since Busco was kind of one of my, like when I was going into the cup, I was like, okay, Busco's really good. The reason why is because it hits Hornet tokens. It will destroy all the hornets by just using it once, because Beast of Busco says when you fatigue it, you put your you place your palm at the top of the card, and then any cards that it touches, if it's your opponent's, you deal 50 damage to each. If they're yours, then you automatically destroy them and draw a card for each. So it's really good against tokens. It's really good against Cosmic, because Cosmic has a bunch of beasties that are 50 life points and lower. It's really good against anything with Spirit, because most of the Spirit beasties, they have lower life points. So against something like Easton's deck with the green fireballs, Busco just pops them all. Against Frost, Busco damages Omikux because it doesn't target. So Busco has a ton of utility, and I still say it's one of the best cards in the game. And I think 2 is kind of a little much, but I'm sure that that Michael tested, and he probably figured that 2 was the right number. But Beast of Busco is just a all around solid card. You slap it down, play lightning in a bottle on it, and it can be a GG, because people do not play around Beast of Busco when they play their cards on the table, because you can play your cards anywhere you want to. So with Busco's effect, like if I'm playing against water, I am playing my cards all over the field, because I do not want to get blown out by a Busco. Bob is too good.
Yeah, he is a good card. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see again how the meta develops going into some of the upcoming tournaments. But one of the things that we kind of want to share with everybody, one of the unique things that we were able to do that I don't think anybody else has done, and if they have done, kudos to them. They're probably keeping it a secret, and we'll have probably come out with more information as we uncover more information. Was that we were actually able to get a hold of every single deck list from Kansas City, and by having every single piece of deck list, we kind of did some formulating. We categorized everything that we needed to categorize, and we have some very interesting statistics to kind of go over some things that Tuffy had asked and said, when I saw the deck list, I was like, wow, everything's available. Tuffy called me up immediately and said, hey, there's deck list active. It'd be great data to go through. I whipped up the Excel sheet, something I'm very much used to, sorted everything through, put everything up in a nice little package, and Tuffy just asked me a bunch of different questions that would be useful to everybody that's out there, that's listening, that's watching, to see, what are these little pieces of data that people could take home with and kind of understand and help them prepare for the game and what they're going to see, what they're going to face, and how best to prepare. And starting with our first overall statistic was, for Kansas City, the overall playing field, what we saw was that 28% of the total field was Lightning. So a lot of Lightning players, and a lot of those Lightning players again, the big subject matter, not making the top 8. So Lightning has been dethroned completely. I mean, I could without a doubt positively say that Lightning has been dethroned. Lightning players did not have a good weekend. Maybe they'll find ways to bounce back, but at this point they are dethroned. Then the second most popular was Frost, which was really interesting because, again, it wasn't a deck that we had really talked about. It wasn't in our analysis saying that, this is something to watch out for, because nobody was really playing it. At least nobody that was playing it that we had access to. And then following that was Cosmic at 11%, Water 11%, then Dark and Flame sharing 8%, Critters at 6%. There was 2 Critters players, so 6%. We're dealing with very low statistics at this point. And then Spirit, Earth, and Light in that order, respectively. And as an average placing, Critters topped it all. With the 2 players, Critters topped the average placing of 9. and then water second. So again, showing that water really is here to play, and come back into the meta again. And then cosmic showing 3. I mean, the outliers flame. The outliers flame because you have Easton, who took down the first one. Light, one light player. There was one light player, so not really much to take from there. And I'll kind of cut it off at that point. But it was Spirit, Frost, Lightning, Earth, Dark in that order as far as average placement. I mean, nobody's playing Dark at all. Dark is not even relevant. Earth is not relevant at all. But that might change with all these spoilers that we see. Do you think, Tuffy, that we have a chance to see Dark be a number 1?
Oh, most certainly. I mean, the one card that I just can't get over is All Hallows Eve. Ever since that was spoiled, I'm like, this is a game-changing finisher. Anybody familiar with the game Yu-Gi-Oh! Return from the DD or Dimension Fusion, that is all I gotta say. Like, it is busted. But yeah, Dark is gonna make a big return. Earth just had a beastie that was spoiled. That's a 2-drop that locks out your opponent's auras. So Earth is definitely, we will see Earth. We will see Dark. It's gonna be a whole new game.
Another aura lock. Besides Cosmic, now Earth will have one.
Yep.
So that will be interesting. And then going back to the data, some cards that you definitely want to know about. And those cards that Tuffy asked me was, hey, how many Prism auras are people playing? Because you see everybody wants to splash all these different colors. Now it's multicolor. You see multicolor in these theme decks that are getting spoiled now for Seance. It's like Water Earth. So with all the theme decks splashing different colors, how big is Prism Aura now and how big will it be later? Well, Prism Aura was featured in 70% of all the decks. So people are splashing this color. In the top 16, 75%, so an even greater percentage. And then in the top 8, 62%. Splashing color, having Prism Aura presumably to splash with color. New Year's New Beginnings versus New Beginnings. New Year's New Beginnings, 74% of the field. New Year's New Beginnings over New Beginnings at 25%. Now that may change because at Kansas City, second anniversary wasn't legal. And we may see other cards that may change how New Year's interacts or how people handle New Year's.
Yeah, second anniversary is going to be huge. And I think most people are going to be playing that in their main deck for sure. At least it's a 1 per deck. So I think it'll make its way into every deck.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. Yep. You have to. I mean, if New Year's New Beginnings is in 74% of all the decks, you need a response. You don't want to be caught. You don't want to be caught because a lot of players are, although we don't say that this is a good idea to do this, but a lot of players are playing that card first turn, second turn, destroying any like nut hand that anybody may have, maybe even destroying their own hand. But either way, second anniversary is going to be a thing to have. And then first anniversary celebration, how many decks contained at least one in their main deck or side deck? 64%. So these cards are still prevalent. I mean, these spells are going to be there. How many main deck? Only 33% main decked first anniversary. Really interesting. And with
that seems
an even
really low.
bigger an even bigger data set was only 5% had the maximum amount. So two people had the maximum amount of first anniversary. And you know who was one of those 2 people?
The champ?
Easton.
Yep.
And that could have been the difference maker. I mean, if there were other people there that had first anniversary in the deck, they may have walked away. They may have walked with a W if they were maxing 2 out. We don't know. We'll have to see. But I mean, if one person what comes up the champion, maybe people should follow suit. We'll see. Mm-hmm. How many of them side decked? 44% of the total field side decked to first anniversary. 30% of those out of everybody only side decked first anniversary. Top 16, 13 of the players had at least one. 81%. So I mean, everybody else that didn't have it, clearly they weren't making top 16 at that point. 6 players, 6 of the 13 main decked it, 38%. 11 players side decked it, 69%. Nice number. Nice.
Giggity.
Top 8, 7 out of the 8 had at least one. Kendall was the only one without first anniversary.
Yeah, I could see his reasoning on not playing it, but I still think the negatives outweigh the positives outweigh the negatives, because his deck is all spirits, right? So if he has an active first anniversary, then his opponent can't
They're
attack
not spirits anymore,
right? But I mean, you can kind of play first anniversary into situations where it's not as it doesn't give you that bad of a position with it being active. So, but
yeah, I could see that being like a turn 2, turn 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Setting you up, especially if you're playing against Lightning, where by turn 2, 3, somebody's probably reaching for a Quetz, to come in with fleet or a lot of fleet. Very powerful off the jump beasties.
Yep.
Another card of interest, Dampen. 22 out of the 36 players featured Dampen in their deck, 61%. 14 out of the top 16 had Dampen. Because of Prismor. Dampen, people are using it. Funny enough, 2 people didn't have the 2 people of those 6 people that didn't have it were number 1 and number 2. Easton and Arthur didn't have Dampen in their deck.
Yeah, that's a really interesting statistic too, because I mean, out of the top 16, the only 2 without Dampen, first and second place. I mean, I don't know if you could draw a correlation there or not, but that is a really interesting that is a really interesting statistic.
For sure. I think what's actually a better statistic out of this, which is really interesting, only 2 of the top 16 players had the max 3. You were one of the max 3.
Yep.
Whether that was going to be in the main deck or side deck. And only 3 out of the 16 only chose to have 1. So more often so, on average, if you are in that top tier of players, if you're in that top 16 level, those top 8 tables, you are probably looking at seeing 2 Dampens, at least from this stage, from this meta moving forward, at least seeing 2 Dampens. So, if you see one being played, you could expect another one, but that would be the maximum until maybe you get into the side deck range where people really want to do that. But with only 2 out of the 16 going max, you're unlikely. So you see 2 and then you're done. You don't have to worry about a third. Pretty important information when you're in that mid game to end game level. 44% of those people main decked it. So 44% of the field main decked it. 9 out of the top 16 had it. 4 out of the top 8 had it. So 50% of the top 8 had Dampen still. Just probably about average anyway, it seems like. But those are some interesting data sets to go after. Now, there was some other interesting stuff that we looked at, which was BC. We started looking at BC to spell ratio, spell to BC ratio, potion to deck size ratio, aura ratios. And I think what we're probably going to be doing is we're probably going to start comparing the same aura types to each other to see how to best make those better. Because not every aura type is the same. Not every one of them is supposed to activate or have a certain, critters. You want a lot of beasties. You're not going to forfeit your beasties. Mm-hmm. In fact, those that have a better beastie to spell ratio are going to perform better from a very small sample size that we saw with Arthur beating out coming in number 2 versus Speed Lemon coming in less. And he actually, with a difference of 1 card, changed his overall percentage points of BC to spell ratio by like 20-25%. And that could have been the difference of the entire match.
Yep.
So those are some of the things that we'll look at and see if we can report on those for next week or anything else like that. As you prepare for these upcoming tournaments. And Tuffy, you want to talk about some of these upcoming tournaments that people should be preparing for, or if they're available or full yet?
Yeah. So Windy City Pop Shop and Perfect Circle Games have a tournament this Saturday on the 24th in Niles, Illinois. And it is a competitive sealed event with best of 1 matches. I believe that there's a few spots that are open. So you might want to jump into there if you can still. The top 3 get first, second, and third place medals. Additional prizes haven't been announced yet, but I do believe that they are doing a lot of giveaways, door prizes, that sort of thing. So it's got a lot of fun going on at the event, and it's a medal event. So if I could be in Niles, Illinois this weekend, I totally would. Next up, we have the Gooboo $1,000 tournament on this Saturday as well in Snellville, Georgia. It is a competitive constructed event with best of 3 matches, and the payout is really, really nice. First place, you get $300 plus a first place medal and a UFO box. Second place, you get $200 and a second place medal and a wilderness box. And third place gets $100, a third place medal, and a Cryptid Nation second edition box. And everybody that participates does get a participation medal, plus one of the biggest things about this, a chicken tender meal. And 4 UFO packs plus a Gooboo t-shirt.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna pause you right there, because if you don't know about it, there's a chicken tender place here in Vegas. I don't know how many places it is, but it's called Raising Cane's, and that alone is worth it. I don't know if you've had it before.
I haven't, but I've heard
delicious.
Okay. I think there might be one in Oklahoma.
But if there's going to be one in Georgia, if you're going to get chicken tendies from Raising Cane's, big W.
Well, I mean, talking to the store owner Dan, I'm sure that he's hooking up everybody with some really nice chicken tenders, some quality tenders. So. And then the last event that I want to mention is the Caster Society X Caster Guild Houston Metal Madness Tournament on the 25th. It is sold out, so it's completely booked right now. But usually, if you show up to an event, there might be some extra spots open up, because generally everybody that signs up for an event, there's some percentage of people that don't make it. But that is in Friendswood, Texas.
There isn't currently a way to unregister from the MPN.
Right. Yeah.
So once you're registered, you're kind of stuck in there. So once they figure out how to unregister people, then those should open up. So if you do plan, I would just show up anyway. Like I'm just going to show my body up to an event and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also in Friendswood, Texas. And first through third place get first, second, and third place medals. And it's going to be 6 rounds of Swiss with a cut to top 8. And the 4th place through 8th place prizing is to be announced.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing the results. And there's still one more tournament that is something to keep an eye out for, is going to be the Smoke Squad collective running the King of the Chill, that we still plan on being there. We're going to be casting. Something to look out for. There's 50 people open for registration. That's a full spot, but something may open up. So if you're in that area, what location is that again, Tuffy?
So it's Smitty hasn't given me the exact address yet, but he did say that they have locked up the newest location for it, and it's 2,500 square feet. So that's going to be plenty of room for everybody. I don't know if he's adding more than 50 people. I know he was really wanting to. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we are going to be there. Metaversity is going to be streaming feature matches and doing commentary, all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Excited for that for sure. Yeah. I know you've been looking forward to it for a while. And you can continue to get all your updates, all your tournament news and deck techs and everything else like that. I do want to say that on our Patreon, we do have an exclusive interviews with Easton Evans, Arthur Tabernacle, and Kendall Adams that are accessible for all those that are Patreon members. So if you don't know about our Patreon, you could sign up now. We have few tiers available, open spots. You could sign up, get exclusive access to content that you would otherwise not be able to get on YouTube or our podcast. You'll be accessing now analytics that some others won't be able to access. So I'd go ahead and start joining, sign up now. Even at the support level would mean a lot to us. And that does it for this week's podcast.
That'll be it for us today, but catch us next week where we'll be bringing another Fourth Wall Effect podcast straight to you.